Hi all, Rick here. I'll give my thoughts and review on episode 3 of Starfleet Academy after talking lore. But for now, I want to talk about the existence of the Starfleet War College. You'd think the whole premise of a war college seems a little too militant for the United Federation of Planets. And you'd be correct. We are still forming a timeline of events over the future of the Trek galaxy leading to the Academy setting, but we know that Starfleet Academy was still based on Earth by 2791, based on the enrolment date of the half-lanthanite Captain Ake, and the burn did not happen until 3069. The show appears to be set in 3191-92, which is a few years over the 120-year figure routinely touted as how long ago the burn happened. When dilithium across the Milky Way flickered and lost its self-space properties for a moment during the burn, a lot of interstellar travel was suddenly destroyed, throwing most of the quadrants into disarray. In the following years, Starfleet attempted to manage what it could, but being so thinly spread, and with the loss of so many ships, it could not be there for everyone who needed it, and member worlds began to fracture. In perhaps the most shocking instance, Earth itself ceded from the United Federation of Planets in order to focus on its own borders and defences, and with that, the UFP, Starfleet, and all installations had to disentangle themselves from their ancestral capital planet in 3089. In another climactic blow, Ni'Var, the joint Romulan-Vulcan homeworld, also leaves this year to guard itself. Historically, Earth has been one of the largest contributors to Starfleet, considering it was, based here, with most of its organisations, if not a branch of it, being associated in some way. Which makes sense. Starfleet had been an Earth-based organisation before the Federation existed, established out of a joint space operations program of the 21st century. Its training grounds were established in San Francisco, initially alongside its headquarters, and this was the beginnings of Starfleet Academy. Alongside this, Earth maintained its own military force, apart from Starfleet, keeping the tracks of exploration and defence separate. In 2161, when the UFP was founded, this version of Starfleet was handed over from the United Earth's control to the Federation, rather than form an entirely new division from scratch. Even Earth's own Star Navy, the Military Assault and Command Operations Division, was dissolved and assimilated into Starfleet, a controversial move at the time, but old hat by the time of the original series. What this meant was that for all intents and purposes, Earth was all in on the Federation, tying not only its diplomatic efforts, exploration initiatives, but now defences into the new Federation Starfleet. The Academy's ownership was transferred to, and now folded in, curricula that included more military matters. Combat training was mandatory, as now Starfleet was to act as the protective armada of the Federation too. It's worth noting that over time no other power linked its military so heavily to Starfleet as Earth did. Although local planetary security still existed, police and such, Starfleet Academy became synonymous with Earth's space endeavours, and this is how it was for 928 years, until 2 decades into the burn. With the Federation out of the picture, the United Earth has to go back to its roots and reinstates its own military, the United Earth Defence Force. Much of the infrastructure of Starfleet was left vacant in its wake, including the facilities of San Francisco, so the UEDF took over the former Starfleet Academy as training grounds for its new recruits and formed the War College. However, the War College, despite its name, is not entirely focused on combat, though undoubtedly more so than Starfleet had been. Alongside the protective aspects of tuition here, they still practiced many of the lessons that Starfleet had taught, folding in science and research training. After all, after nearly a millennia, the Federation was kind of in Earth's DNA. Even though it was gone, Earth was still a multicultural and multi-species hub. It's just that the War College's primary role was to educate and create defenders of Earth rather than multi-purpose explorers. We can see this in the War College's roster of former and present cadets, which included a Klingon Jem'Hadar hybrid in the 3140s. It contained many of the training programs that Starfleet had instigated, including the wargame Calica. When Earth rejoined the UFP in 3189, rebuilding the Federation's former status began in earnest, but the Federation's headquarters remained on the USS Federation Mobile Station for a time, and cadet training for Starfleet was more of a loose, in-the-field affair. After 2 years, Starfleet returned to Earth, bringing with it the USS Athena, a new Academy-class starship, which would be based at San Francisco, literally placing itself there as an additional campus and detachable asset for fieldwork. However, in this time, the War College had flourished in its own right, and been taking on the role Starfleet once occupied. As such, the decision was made not to merge the War College into the Federation properly, but to keep it as a second and open method of training alongside Starfleet Academy, sharing the same grounds and facilities. It remains to be seen if graduates from the War College can enter into Starfleet proper, but it seems likely, as in its past, Starfleet has accepted comparable degrees and training as grounds for commission. See the Vulcan Science Academy, or any number of scientific degrees, doctorates, and medical fields. And that about sums up Earth's War College. So, switching now to my brief thoughts on Episode 3 of Starfleet Academy. This one was what I expected the entire series to feel like, with a focus on school shenanigans first and foremost. As I expressed in my last impressions video, this is the sort of part of the show I'm least interested in. I'm very confused by the whole prank war thing, especially an unofficially sanctioned one between two academies. Maybe it's a cultural thing, but I don't recall such enmity between our schools, but it must be a trope for a reason. I wish they'd stop playing up the ineptitude of the class at times. One or two jokes I find funny, but pushing it too much begins to feel like there's actually something to be concerned with. I did enjoy the existence of Calica as a teaching sport to drill calm under fire teamwork into the cadets, and it exists alongside education into scientific topics like tending to a whimsical endangered fungus. This was definitely the most comedic episode so far, with it perhaps being pushed a little too hard for my tastes, but it did exist alongside some actual character development, and I find myself caring for the fates of these cadets. I want them to succeed and find their place. Aki is incredibly quirky in this one, and on rewatch, with prior knowledge of her attempting to drop obvious clues across, I get why, but in the moment I was very confused. Her approach is best summed up by the conversation she has with Lyra Thok, that these are kids who grew up during the darkest time in the galaxy and she doesn't want to add to this, so everything involving her is done with an overly carefree attitude. Overall though, while entertaining, this is the first meh episode for me, but so far 2 out of 3 remains a good average, if small sample size. So, thanks for watching this exploration of the War College, and my brief thoughts on Episode 3 of Starfleet Academy. I've been Rick, and until the next one, goodbye.